2 million years ago, the most dangerous animal on the savannah had no claws, no fangs, no armor. It couldn't outrun anything. It couldn't outfight anything. It had thin skin, weak jaws, and a spine so badly designed that its descendants would one day complain about lower back pain from sitting in chairs. And somehow, this thing took over the entire planet. Not the lion, with claws that could open a rib cage. Not the cheetah, which could hit highway speeds on foot. Not the gorilla, which could bench press a small car if it ever felt like it. The naked, slow, fragile one. That's the animal that won. For a long time, the explanation seemed obvious. We were smarter. Big brain, big victory, end of story. But that's not quite what happened. Because if you look closely at how humans actually won, you find something stranger. We didn't win by thinking harder than everything else. We won by finding ways to think less. That sounds backwards. Stay with me, because this pattern is about to explain the last 2 million years of your species, and then it's going to explain something sitting in your pocket right now. Start with fire. Somewhere around 1 million years ago, maybe more, your ancestors started cooking their food. And cooking is basically digestion that happens outside your body. Raw food is hard work. A chimpanzee spends around half its waking hours just chewing. Fire pre-digests food before it ever touches your mouth. Softer food, easier meals, more energy left over. Chew less. Then came the spear. Before tools, hunting meant getting dangerously close to something with claws and a very reasonable objection to being eaten. A pointed stick changed the math. Suddenly, the fight happens at a distance. The weakest animal on the savannah could take down the strongest one without ever touching it. Fight less. Then farming. For hundreds of thousands of years, food was something you chased. Then, around 12,000 years ago, humans flipped it. Plant the food, fence the animals, make the food come to you, chase less. And here's where the pattern changes. Because fire and spears and farming were all reducing physical demands, saving the body. But the next inventions started saving something else: writing. Before writing, everything a society knew had to live inside human memory. Every law, every story, every recipe, every debt, stored in brains, passed mouth to mouth, and lost the moment the wrong person died. Writing took memory out of the skull and put it on a surface. For the first time, you could know something without remembering it. Remember less. Then the calculator. Arithmetic used to be a professional skill. There were rooms full of people whose entire job was doing math by hand. They were literally called computers, and they were humans. Then we built a machine that did it faster, without errors, without lunch breaks. Calculate less. Then GPS. Humans used to build detailed maps inside their own heads. Now a calm voice tells you when to turn, and millions of people navigate cities they've never mentally learned. Navigate less. Then Google. Why store a fact in your brain when you can store the location of the fact instead? And this one isn't a guess, it's been measured. In 2011, a psychologist named Betsy Sparrow ran a series of experiments at Columbia and found something remarkable. When people believe information will be saved on a computer, they remember the information itself worse, but they remember where to find it better. Your brain isn't failing when it does this. It's doing what it has always done, refusing to carry anything the environment can carry for it. Researchers called it the Google effect. No less. Do you see it now? Fire, spears, farms, writing, calculators, GPS, search engines. These look like separate inventions. They're not. They are the same move, repeated for 2 million years. Take something the body or brain has to do and hand it to the world. Every single time, individual humans practiced a skill less, and the species as a whole became dramatically more powerful. That is the actual human superpower, not intelligence, outsourcing. Which brings us to the newest tool, the one that completes the sentence. Think less. And this is the moment where the pattern, the one that worked flawlessly for 2 million years, stops and stares back at us. Because every previous tool took over a task. This one is being handed the thing that was choosing the tasks. Okay, this one might be different. But before you panic, you should know something. You are not the first generation to feel this exact feeling, not even close. Around 2,500 years ago, one of the greatest thinkers who ever lived looked at a piece of new technology and predicted it would ruin the human mind. His name was Socrates. The technology was writing. We know this because his student Plato wrote it down, which is genuinely funny if you think about it. In a dialogue called the Phaedrus, Socrates argues that writing will create forgetfulness in the learner's souls. People will stop exercising memory. They'll seem knowledgeable while understanding nothing, because the knowledge will live on the page instead of in the person. And here's the uncomfortable part. He was right. Ancient oral cultures could memorize epic poems tens of thousands of lines long. That skill largely faded. We really did trade it away. But look at what we bought with it. Writing didn't shrink human knowledge, it detonated it. Science, law, history, medicine, mathematics, none of it works if every fact has to live inside a living brain. Socrates was standing in front of the invention that would eventually preserve his own ideas for 25 centuries, warning everyone that it would make people forgetful. He saw the cost perfectly. He just couldn't see the trade. Because that's what every one of these steps really was. Not decline, a trade, an individual skill exchanged for a collective superpower. Fewer people memorize epics, everyone inherits a library. Fewer people do long division, everyone lands airplanes with math no human could do by hand. And your brain adapts to whichever side of the trade it lives on. Neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire famously found that London taxi drivers who memorize the entire city show measurable differences in the hippocampus, the brain's navigation center. The brain isn't fixed. It reshapes itself around whatever you actually practice. Change the tools, and you change which skills get practiced. That's not damage. That's what brains do. So if humanity has run this exact trade 8 times and gotten richer every time, why does the AI trade feel different? Because it is different. In one specific, precise way. And it's not the way most people think. Every tool in that 2 million year sequence had one thing in common. It was passive. A spear doesn't hunt. It waits in the corner until a human picks it up. A book doesn't read itself to you. A calculator sits there patiently, holding a 0 until you press a button. A GPS doesn't go anywhere. Every previous tool was frozen potential, and a human had to supply every intention, every decision, every next step. You were always the one thinking. The tool just made your thinking go further. AI breaks that pattern. You don't operate it step by step. You hand it a goal. Plan this, write this, figure this out, and it decides the steps on its own. It drafts, evaluates, corrects, and continues without you. For the first time in 2 million years, the tool doesn't wait for the next instruction. That's the real shift. Not smart versus dumb, passive versus active. And it changes the nature of the trade. When writing took over memory, you still decided what to look up. When the calculator took over arithmetic, you still decided what to calculate. The judgment, the part that asks what's worth doing and whether the answer makes sense, always stayed on your side of the table. Now, for the first time, that part is negotiable, which means the question facing you isn't the one in the headlines. It's not, will AI replace us? It's older and more personal than that. For 2 million years, we built tools that helped us think. What happens when we build tools that can do more of the thinking for us? Nobody fully knows. Anyone who claims certainty is selling something. But the last 2 million years do offer one honest clue. The trade is never automatic, and it's never total. Writing existed for centuries before most humans could read. Calculators didn't end mathematics. Mathematicians just moved to harder problems. Every time a tool absorbed a skill, the humans who thrived weren't the ones who competed with the tool, and they weren't the ones who surrendered to it. They were the ones who kept the one skill no tool has ever absorbed, deciding what's worth doing and judging whether it was done well. So go back to the savannah one last time. That fragile, clawless, slow little creature standing among the predators. You've been picturing it as weak this whole time, but it was never really alone out there. It had fire waiting at camp, tools in its hands, knowledge stored in the people beside it. Its real secret was never the size of its brain. Its secret was that it refused to think alone. And 2 million years later, here you are, its direct descendant, watching a glowing rectangle, half your memory stored in the search bar, an artificial mind one tap away. You are not the end of that story. You're just the first generation that has to answer its hardest question. When the tool can finally think, what do you keep for yourself?